Good day to you and welcome to the Web Crusade. My name is DissKnight and today we are finally talking about the assault rifles in Valorant. As the Champions League of weapon classes, it is crucial for you to know your way around these ARs if you want to exceed in the game. Note that this is not a subjective video and I will not talk about personal preferences. Instead, I will present how the ARs compare in a variety of tests that allow us to objectively identify the best AR in a given situation. After going through some general weapon stats, I will first show you the results of my mobility tests, which includes reload time, weapon switch time and more. Then the combat tests, including damage and time to kill stats for a variety of combat distances and armor types. And I will conclude the video with a few graphs on how the weapons compare in the combat tests. Enjoy! As of now, there are 4 ARs in the game and I gotta say that they are all usable and can have their individual place across a match. Let's have a look at the stats that the game gives us. No surprises here really. The values in the brackets are for the secondary fire mode and based on these stats alone we can't say much. So let's start with the stats that the game doesn't give you, but I do. The time till reload is the time you can shoot with the max fire rate before you have to reload. All the full auto ARs are pretty balanced around 2.7 seconds here, and the Guardian is a second quicker due to a relatively high fire rate but a small magazine size. The weapon switch time is the time it takes to switch from the knife to the gun and shoot the first bullet. This takes a second for all ARs. Sometimes this still feels like an eternity though. Can't blame the gun. The reload time is the time it takes until your magazine is full again, which doesn't necessarily mean that the animation is complete. As you can see here, I zoomed in a bit, and the time that I tested here is the time it takes for the number to change after pressing R. The more interesting stat, however, is the time to shoot after the reload, and as we can see here, this is exactly the same for all ARs regardless of the different reload times we've just seen. 2.5 seconds is a very long time, so you should only reload when safe or empty. The Crosshair recovery time is the time it takes for your crosshair to reset back to the center after taking a shot. The Vandal is the most punishing here, and also the Guardian has a bit more punch to it than the other 2 ARs. Adding all this up gives us the average mobility, and as we can see here, the devs did a really good job in balancing out the ARs and also their bank accounts when looking at the store prices for skins, by the way. Anyways, I guess we need to proceed with the combat tests to make a real statement on which gun is better in which situation. Let's do it. The average damage and the average TTK were calculated across all distances, body parts and armor types. And just based on the average TTK stat, we can objectively say that the Vandal is the best AR across all scenarios. Obviously, we have to take a look at other variables affecting the TTK to distinguish the best AR for individual scenarios. Combat distance is such a scenario, and at ranges between 0 and 30 meters, the Phantom has actually the lowest TTK and is therefore the best AR to use. My assumption is also that across global player kills, the average combat distance lies between 0 and 30 meters, making the Phantom the best overall AR. But that is info I don't have and can't test either, it's just an assumption. Another variable affecting the TTK is the armor type, and here things get interesting. Against no armor, the Phantom has the lowest TTK. Against light armor, the Guardian has the lowest TTK, and against heavy armor, the Vandal has the lowest TTK. My assumption here is that you will fight against armored players more often and probably most times against heavy armor, making the Vandal the best for that scenario. Again, neither do I have that info nor could I test it, so the individual scenario determines the best gun. We all know that TTK is useless though against guns that kill you in one shot. If you don't know already, you should be going for headshots with ARs as they potentially one-shot kill to the head. All ARs can do that. The Bulldog between 0 and 50 meters against no armor, the Guardian between 0 and 50 meters against all armor types, the Phantom between 0 and 15 meters against all armor, 0 and 30 meters against no and light armor, and between 0 and 50 meters against no armor, and the Vandal between 0 and 50 meters against all armor types. At the bottom here I listed the max and minimum damage per shot, which is not super useful to be honest, but I wanted to include it anyways. I yet have to test the values when shooting through walls though, so the minimum values might change. The average damage in percent of the price is another balancing measurement, and the ARs are also quite similar here. Slightly higher than the SMGs, but not quite at the 10% mark where sidearms are at. As promised, we will now look at some graphs to visualize the comparison between the ARs a bit more, and here I decided to exclude the secondary fire mode for simplicity and clarity in the graph. Let's start with the damage comparison across different body parts and distances. If you want to know how damage is affected by armor, things get a bit more complicated, and I did a separate video for you to check out, where you can also find a link to a calculation tool I made specifically for that. Video's on screen right now, back to the damage values. Big shout out for Breach to assist us in presenting the damage graphs. Here you can see the damage of the ARs against the head between 0 and 50 meters, with the red line indicating the magical 100 damage mark. As already mentioned, all the ARs kill in one shot here, even the Phantom with the damage drop off at range that we can nicely see here. I will just briefly show the damage to the body and leg here, so if you want to have a detailed look, pause the video, otherwise let's keep going. When looking at the time to kill comparison, we have to consider armor, which is why I'm now showing 3 graphs instead of 1. At no armor, the TTK is 0 since it's a one-shot kill. For light and heavy armor, we can see that the Bulldog loses its ability to one-shot kill. The Phantom loses it at high-range encounters for light armor and mid-range encounters for heavy armor. For body shots, the TTK for the Bulldog, Guardian and Vandal remain constant at all ranges and increases against armored enemies. Same for the Phantom, which actually performs best at low to mid ranges against no armor and low ranges against heavy armor. Against the legs, the TTK for all weapons further increases, as it should, and we also start realizing that TTK looks good on paper but is very hard to make out in real games, as most of you probably don't have a computer-like sense of time. That is why I included the shots to kill graphs, and here we can see effectively how distances, body parts and armor affect the required shots to kill an enemy. For headshots, only the Bulldog and the Phantom are affected by the armor and damage drop off respectively. This nicely shows how the Phantom loses its potential at higher ranges when the enemy has armor equipped. For body shots, we can see that the heavy armor really can make a difference, as for most ARs the required shots to kill are higher than for light armor. Least affected by armor in general seems to be the Guardian due to its high damage output across all ranges. And finally, this trend continues with the leg shots, where the Phantom actually requires 6 hits at long ranges when heavy armor is equipped. The lowest shot to kill count for heavy armor here is 4, where no and light armor only require 3 shots. In conclusion, we saw that we can in fact determine the best AR objectively for a variety of different situations when we do a few calculations. This implies that the question on what the best AR is can be answered, and when you know what kind of situations you spend the majority of your fights in. As these situations are not constant within a single match, you may need to switch your weapon depending on the situation you're gonna put yourself in next. Do I change my Vandal for a Phantom on the ground when entering a site? If the upcoming fights are within 15 meters, I should. If you truly want to master the game, which I surely don't have, you need to know what weapon is the best for the upcoming situation, given the info that you get from either your teammates, awareness, and simply game sense in the end. And that, my friends, as we all know, comes down to practice. A lot of it. Either way, I hope this guide was helpful for you to better understand the ARs and make decisions on which one to play for you a bit easier. Click the like button if you liked the video and consider subscribing as I put up similar content in the future. Head over to Twitch if you want to see me live. I stream Tuesdays and Thursdays. Thanks for being part of the Web Crusade today. My name is DissKnight and the world is yours to diss.